Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to a video I did not expect to be making actually. Now, what is it with cars in this neighborhood anyway? This video was supposed to be a deck tech on the druid deck that I have been playing in tournaments for the past couple months. Since I finally started streaming, so I thought I might as well put it out there. I will put that deck in the description. However, having played yesterday and the day before, and I was thinking, let's make deck tech, so I recorded some games for Druid, and then I realized the deck is just overpowered. Like, I was just looking on Hearthstone, and I realized that there's some serious issues with the current metagame. Some serious issues with the current metagame. In fact, I'm not the kind of person who normally makes metagame complaint videos. I'm the kind of person who normally talks about what you can do in the metagame and what decks are good right now and what kind of things you should be building towards and predictions for tournaments and things like that. I don't tend to make these videos. Last time I did was a freeze mage, and that was some serious issues that caused all the way back then. So as a result, this is not something I really do that often, and I only do it when I feel like it's really necessary. So I found myself today actually talking about the problems that Miracle Rogue and Druid have caused. Because at the moment, there are 3 tiers of decks. Druid and Rogue, Warlock, and everything else. And there's like another one with Priest at the bottom or something. Yeah, people who consider Warlock to be tier 1 at the moment really don't know what they're talking about. It's about 1.5. Warlock doesn't even compete. I mean, Handlock is good against Handlock is good against Rogue, but it just gets crushed in general by Druid. It kind of has a slight Zoo has a slight fighting chance against Druid. It's just kind of depressing, to be honest. But Miracle Rogue has caused a lot of balance issues, and this even caused me to come out of my hiding sort of streak on the forums. I don't normally comment on the forums at all. Hearthstone ones, I mean. The Hearthstone ones I tend to go on quite a lot, but the Hearthstone forums I stay off of, and the main reason for that is because most people who are talking on those forums really don't know what they're talking about. Most people. Some people are actually very intelligent on those forums and know exactly what they're talking about. But the post that sort of brought me out of hiding, so to say, was a thread that was asking why to nerf Miracle. And it was an argument saying, well, I've been playing against Miracle Rogues, and I'm about rank 5 or so, and I'm playing against Miracle Rogues, and I have no problems with them, and I can't figure out why everyone's complaining about it. And I did finally come to the realization that the reason why a lot of people think that Miracle Rogue is absolutely fine is because they don't play at the highest level. Only about 1% of the player base actually knows what the problem with Miracle is, which is an interesting situation. And the main reason for this is because Miracle Rogue is such a hard deck to play that the only players who can actually play it to its fullest extent and cause people to realize that there's something wrong with that deck are people that are rank 2 roughly and up. So rank 2, rank 1, and legend. Even rank 2 and rank 1 players are a little sketchy with it. It's mostly like top 1000 legend players that really know what they're doing with that deck, and playing against a top 1000 legend player who's playing Miracle is terrifying. Like, that deck is completely broken at the moment. And to give you an idea of what people are arguing with, it's the kind of thing where, oh, well, there's counter decks. Yeah, there are counter decks, but the counter decks are not that good right now in the metagame. You can't just run a counter deck because the other half of the metagame, there's 2 halves of the metagame right now. Rogue and Druid. Now, Handlock is bad against Druid, so even if you play Handlock in Legend, you win about, what, 40% of your games? Because you won't beat Druid, and the Rogue matchup's like 70%, so you still don't have a positive win rate. Other decks, first of all, Zoo does not counter Miracle. I don't know where this came from. In fact, Miracle's good against Zoo, so I have no idea where that came from. A bunch of people have been saying Zoo Lock is good versus Miracle. No, it's not. I don't know where that came from. That probably came from some popular streamer who said it by accident. I have no idea where that came from. Maybe if one of you guys knows, just put it in the comments. because I have no clue where that particular piece of information came from. But if you look at other decks, Shokadin, really coin flippy against most of the metagame, to be honest, and against Rogue it's good, but the rest of the metagame is kind of meh. Freeze Mage, good against Handlock, okay against Miracle. There's a difference. Terrible against the rest of the metagame. Freeze Mage is a pretty bad deck, to be honest. It's only good versus Handlock and some of the other greedy control decks. But against Druid, it's kind of meh. And against Rogue, it's not that good either. I mean, it is okay. But you still get burst down. Like, it's okay, but they still burst you down on turn 8. If they get a decent draw, pop your ice block, and then you lose. So it's not a perfect matchup, as some people seem to think it is. And those are the 4 counters people refer to when they're talking about Miracle. Now, I don't know why they talk about those as the 4 counters. To be honest, if I had to label a counter to Miracle, if I had to label counters to Miracle, it would be Aggro Warrior and Aggro Rogue. Aggro Rogue mostly. Aggro Rogue is everywhere right now. That deck is like 40% against everything, apart from Miracle, where it's like 60% or 70%. And that is enough to make a deck successful. In fact, a lot of people in Legend right now, since we're coming up to the end of the season, a lot of people are trying to grind Legend ranks, trying to get into top 100. Now, last night, this is actually what caused me to make this video. Last night, I went on ladder, and I played against 13 rogues in a row. And I was like, man, that's just coincidence. So then I was talking to some of the other people I was playing with, and apparently they were playing against mostly rogues and druids as well. And it was a cascade, over and over and over again. I talked to about 7 different people when I was laddering, and they were all playing against rogues and druids. That's just absurd. Like, one person facing 13 in a row is coincidence, but 7, like, or 8 actually, because I talked to 7 different people. So that's just absurd to me. The fact that the ladder's coming to a close, everyone's trying to grind ranks, and then suddenly everyone just stops dropping their act of saying, oh, this deck is viable, and it's good against the current metagame, and just literally goes back to Miracle Rogue, Aggro Rogue, and Druid. Okay, I'm closing that window. That road is not busy, just people are maniacs in this part of the city, whatever. But anyway, I just found that kind of hilarious, to be honest, that pretty much everyone switched to Druid and Rogue. Like, I've been maining Druids in tournaments, but I've been trying to learn, like, Tempo Warrior, because I actually ran into, what was it, Kolma? Yeah, Kolma. I ran into Kolma on ladder after I talked to him on YouTube, which was kind of awesome. So I've been trying to learn the Warrior Tempo deck and asking him for advice and things every so often. And as a result, my Legend rank dropped like a rock, which you expect, because I suck at the deck. But then I was thinking, wait a second, do I want to grind up ranks? And if I wanted to grind up ranks, I would have just switched to Druid. That's what I came to the realization of. I wouldn't play mid-range Hunter, I wouldn't play Tempo Rogue, I wouldn't play Zoo, nothing like that. I don't play Miracle. Well, I have played like 150 games of Miracle, I just don't like playing the deck. The deck is really, really good, and I had an amazing win rate with the deck when I did play it, as most people did. But I don't like playing it, so I resorted to Druid, which is the other overpowered class. So yeah, I resorted to Druid, and Druid is just crushing people. The other thing that really spurred me to make this video was my last Zotac run. As usual, like, this happened 2 weeks in a row now, where Druid just ran everyone and then I ran into another Druid, lost the mirror match, and then stood no chance in the second game. It literally all decided on the Druid match. And on a side note, the Druid mirror match is one of the stupidest matchups in the entire game. It's entirely, like, you can have a hand with, like, Wrath, Keeper of the Grove, Harvest Golem, Power of the Wild going second, and you mulligan all of it. Because you just need Wild Growth. Or you can keep, like, Harvest Golem, I think. Yeah, you can keep Harvest Golem, but what? And that's only if you're going second that you can keep Harvest Golem. You can't keep Harvest if you're going first. So you keep Harvest if you're going second, but besides that, you don't keep anything that isn't Innervate or Wild Growth in the mirror, and then whoever gets Wild Growth on turn 2 wins. It's really stupid. Like, that card has caused a lot of issues, and one of the fixes for Druid, at least, that I've heard, is just removing Wild Growth. Because Druid without Wild Growth is actually balanced. Like, if you look at it, all the non-Wild Growth decks, they're like close to tier 1, but they're not broken. If you remove Wild Growth, then the class is fairly well balanced. Because a druid without wild growth is pretty balanced to play against, and it's a very, very grindy game, and it's actually fine. A druid with wild growth will pressure you from turn 3 over and over and over again, and then kill you on turn 9 with combo. And it's very difficult to stop. It's almost impossible to stop, actually. And that's why I played the deck. The deck is overpowered. It really is. But as far as the Miracle Rogue side of things go, I mean, that's the problems with Druid. You just remove Wild Growth. Miracle Rogue, however, is a harder deck to fix. And if you actually look at what Miracle Rogue has caused, it's now been the most successful deck for 3 seasons in a row. This isn't even like a flavor of the month thing. This is a flavor of the quarter. Actually, this is a quarter of the year so far. It's been dominated by Miracle Rogue. Even when Sunshine Hunter was around, it was dominated by Miracle Rogue. And people talk about the Sunshine Hunter metagame as being, oh, Sunshine was such a big deal. Not even close to what's going on right now. Not even close. Sunshine Hunter was not oppressive. It was a overpowered deck. It was a very, very strong deck. And as a result, it was just like the best deck you could play, besides Miracle, I think. But yeah, Miracle and Sunshine Hunter and Druid, basically. Druid became overpowered because of Miracle Rogue. But it was Sunshine Hunter and Miracle. But Sunshine Hunter was not oppressive. Rogue is oppressive. Rogue has killed entire archetypes. And when I say Rogue, I mean Miracle, because decks like Tempo Rogue were actually quite fun to play. And play against, actually. But it's an incredibly oppressive deck. Like, because of Miracle Rogue, Priest is completely unplayable on higher level. Paladin Control is completely unplayable on higher levels. Even stuff like the Tempo decks are almost unplayable. In fact, you have to be very, very lucky with playing Tempo decks. Like, we've been playing Tempo and we're just like, hey, win, Miracle. Win, Miracle. The Miracle destroys that deck, and it's just really, really awkward. It's one of the single most oppressive decks I think I've ever seen, besides Freeze Mage. And I've played Miracle in the past, and back when it was overpowered. Didn't really like the deck, but played it in the past. I played my own version of Rogue back then, and I played it recently with the current balancing, and I imagine if it becomes overpowered again in the future, I'll play it again. But just because you play a deck does not mean you should be defending it. You really shouldn't be. I mean, if you just look at the top streamers right now, most streamers, in fact almost all of them, are playing Miracle Rogue. It's actually put me off watching streams. Like, the only streamers I still watch are Forsen and Reynad. That's it. I watch Reynad because I know he, as a personality, is kind of annoying. But anyway, I watch Reynad stream muted most of the time just because he plays ridiculously hilarious decks. He doesn't usually play Miracle, he plays a bunch of random other stuff. And I watch Forsen stream because the chat is hilarious. And he's also really funny to listen to when he rages. But that's not why I should be watching a stream. I should be watching a stream because I'm actually interested in what the person is playing. Which I was 3 seasons ago. But now everyone is playing Miracle. It's kind of sad. If you can go on Twitch, and about 90% of popular streamers with like more than 1,000 viewers will be playing Miracle. And almost every single person that streams a top 100 legend is playing Miracle. And oddly enough, there aren't that many Druid streamers, I've noticed. It seems to be a deck most people don't like streaming. Not quite sure why though. But yeah, the Miracle thing, it's become quite oppressive and it's getting out of hand at this point. The problem is fixing it. I don't know if you can, because of the way Hearthstone is designed. Combo decks, once they're overpowered, they're very hard to balance. In fact, Freeze Mage was balanced by a complete fluke. It was actually completely destroyed. It was completely destroyed when they nerfed it, and that was sort of the point. So yeah, it was completely destroyed when they nerfed it, all the freeze cards and Pyroblast, and the point was they wanted to kill it because combo decks are very, very irritating to play against, and they really don't want them in the game for obvious reasons because they're unfair. If they're overpowered, they're completely unfair, and it's very difficult to balance one of those decks in the current setup because we don't have counter spells like in Magic or hand disruption. So combo decks are very, very rampant when they are overpowered, and it just causes issues. So I've got a feeling that if they nerf Miracle, they're gonna kill it. And last time they nerfed Miracle, they should have killed Gadgetzan. They should have nerfed that card into the ground, or at least changed it so you can't cascade off it continuously, like make it draw all the cards at the end of the turn or something like that. Just, you don't want a cascading spells. Having it drawing cards for other classes is fine. I mean, there was a suggestion to make it legendary because most decks, in fact all decks that play it, apart from Rogue, just play it as a one-off. So making it legendary is fine. And I think that's actually a pretty cool idea. But I think if Blizzard is paying attention, I think since this is the second time this has happened, they're starting to realize that if they want to get rid of this combo deck, like Miracle, they need to kill the deck. They can't just sort of nerf and whittle around with things because it just comes back because of the way a negative power creep works. They nerf it, then they nerf everything else, and then it comes up again, and then they nerf it, and then they nerf everything else, and then it comes up again, and it's a vicious cycle, to be honest. And Miracle has so far ruined 2 metagames entirely. One at the beginning of beta and one now. So it's a very damaging deck to the game. It is a very, very damaging deck. It is very unfair to play against. It's very, very frustrating to play against. It's one of the hardest decks to play with and play against. And normally I'm in favor of skill-based combo decks like the Molten Giant combo deck and also Alexstrasza OTK. I was actually fine with, and the reason I was fine with that is because you can play around it. Like in the case of Alexstrasza OTK, you have the Gorehowl you can prepare for. You play a taunt and it saves you, or you heal up a bit, or you just ooze the weapon, things like that. You can actually play around it. In terms of Molten Giant combo, you just don't get them down to 10. You get them down to 10, and then you put down a bunch of taunts and they can't win. And it was just things like that. Even, I mean, this is closest to the Unleash the Hounds combo, but even then it was just Defender Vargas. Defender Vargas stopped that. And that's why the deck wasn't overpowered, it was just people complaining about it. But this and Freeze Mage are the 2 decks that have dominated a metagame that have actually been completely overpowered in terms of the combo thing. Freeze Mage at the moment is actually just kind of finicky and a bit of a bad deck, to be honest. But Miracle Rogue is kind of brutal. And the main reason it's a problem is because you can't really prepare for it. Like, depending on what your opponent has in their hand, they can burst you down from 30. It's really stupid, and sometimes they just have it on turn 8. It doesn't happen that often, but every so often they just have the combo on turn 8 and you lose, and it's really irritating. It's one of the most frustrating decks of all time to play against, I would say, besides Freeze Mage. And it's kind of insane. It's even worse than playing against Original Miracle. Original Miracle was better. It was actually a more powerful deck, but they played something and concealed it, which meant you could play a taunt, or a couple taunts, so they can't just sap one. The current Miracle deck, you have no idea when they're going to go off. So if you play a bunch of taunts, then they just spend the turn clearing the taunts and getting rid of them. Unless you have a second wave of taunts, you're just dead next turn. Because you don't know when they're going to combo. You really don't. Like, you have no idea when they're going to combo. You can guess, and depending on how good of a player you are, your guess is going to be more or less accurate. But it's still kind of finicky. I mean, it's getting to the point now where even people who do play it at the highest level are admitting they're playing it just because of the win rates. It's kind of absurd. Like, you talk to some Miracle players about a month ago, they were like, oh, the deck's really, really cool, and I love playing it. And you talk to them at the end of the season, they're like, yeah, the deck is overpowered, it's really busted, and I'm still gonna play it 'cause it's good. Same with Druid players. Like, I'm starting to get really frustrated playing Druid, mostly because of the mirror match. But yeah, mirror match is just horrible. But yeah, I'm starting to get really, really frustrated with Warrior. I mean, not with Warrior, with Druid. And I'm actually trying to move on to like Warrior and Rogue Tempo and things like that. I love the Tempo decks. I really, really love playing Tempo, and I think in tournaments I'm going to have to be stuck with the best decks right now. This is the penalty of playing on a team and playing competitively, is that you actually have to play the best decks, and it's really irritating, but it's just how the game works. But for ladder, I think I'm going to be staying away from Druid and Miracle Rogue for next season, especially with Nax coming out probably at the end of or midway through next season. I mean, my guess for Nax is the 15th of July, because if they release the first wing on the 15th, then by the time the season ends, like season 5 will include all of the wings, because the last wing will be released on the first day of the season, if they release it on the 15th. So I think my bet is it's on the 15th. So laddering wise, I'm going to see how far I can get with a Tempo deck. If I have to switch to Druid or something to get Legend before Nax comes out, then I will. because ultimately, if you're playing competitively, you're playing to win, and that is something which a lot of people don't seem to realize. If you talk to a competitive player, and this is something I'm just going to say because this is one of the things that a lot of people don't seem to realize. If you talk to a competitive player, and I'm not talking about someone like on YouTube, because I mean, in my case, and someone like Trump and Noxious back when he played super competitively, and people like that, if you ask them questions, they'll answer them. Why? Because they're also YouTubers. Like they will happily answer your questions. But if you try and talk to a hyper competitive player continuously about balance issues, that's just a word of advice. The one type of player I really have issues talking to is that, yeah, there are only two types of players I can actually talk to about balance issues with Hearthstone. One is professional players, and two is like rank 5 and up, maybe 4 and up players. New players I don't mind talking to and giving advice to, and the reason for that is because they're new to the game and I can sort of help them out. The one type of player I can't stand is mid-level players, and when I say mid-level, I mean between like rank 5 and 15. Yes, if you are rank 5, you are not a high-level player. You really are not. Like if you're between rank 5 and 15, you are a mid-level player. That's just how it is. So if I'm talking to a rank 5 or 15 player, the main problem that happens is that if you're between 15 and 10 or so, you're not that cocky normally, but for some reason rank 10 to 5 players think they know everything. And it's really frustrating to talk to. You can't talk to these people, and this is something that a lot of professional players have issues with. When you try and talk to someone between rank 10 and 5, they always just assume they know more than you and start talking about balance issues like they just know everything and have the most experience and sort of they're a gift from God to this game that just knows everything possible, and they're like the best player in the world. And this is a mentality which is really irritating, and you find this on the forums a lot. It's just people between rank 10 and 5 saying, "Oh, I don't see what's wrong with this. There's counter decks, right? There's nothing wrong with these decks at all because at my ranks there's not a problem." Yes, I'm sorry to say, because I mean this entire channel is dedicated to trying to get those, like trying to get people to get better at the game. So if you're rank 20 to get to 15 or so, rank 15 to 10, 10 to 5, 5 to legend. That was basically the entire channel is based on that. But one thing I would really like people to understand is that if you're rank 5 or below, please don't try and talk about balance issues to a higher level player. All you're going to do is piss them off. That's just a random public service announcement. Every single time you do that, what's literally going through that player's mind, and keep in mind this doesn't apply to all of us because a lot of us deal with people on YouTube all the time, so we're used to talking to these people. But if you're trying to talk to someone like on TeamSpeak or just messaging them on Twitch or something, you're talking to a pro level player, if you're talking to them about sort of, oh, what's wrong with this, why this is overpowered, this isn't overpowered, it's perfectly balanced, it's broken, what's generally going through their head is that, oh look, it's a guy who is not as good at the game as he could be, and that's putting it lightly. He's not as good at the game as he could be, is trying to tell me how I should do things without knowing anything. That's basically what's going through their head, and that's putting it fairly mildly. So just word of advice: if you're trying to get a hold of these people and you're trying to actually talk to them about this stuff, they really don't care. And this happens a lot on forums where you have a high level player goes in the forums, like this happened to Jayska. This was really funny. There was actually a post about from this guy who was like rank 5 or something, and I'm not going to disclose names because I don't want to embarrass people, but there was this guy who was about rank 5, and he said, "Don't complain about Miracle unless you have like 1,000+ games." And then just a bunch of people below him saying, "All right, 3,000+ games, legend rank. Can I talk about them now?" It's just a bunch of people mocking him, because ultimately, and there was even one guy who just quoted his things like, "Oh, I've been playing at rank 5 with just an like." People do not take you seriously if you're rank 5+. Just because you have the golden symbol does not mean people take you seriously at all. Like, unfortunately, that's the way it works. It's like if you're playing StarCraft and you're complaining about balance issues when you're platinum rank. That's the exact thing. If you're a high diamond, like top 8, people start taking you seriously because that's like top 2% roughly, almost. It's like top 3%. So people start taking you seriously about that rank. And in Hearthstone, it's much of the same. 3 to 2 is probably about top 2 to 3%. So people actually start taking you seriously. However, if you're below that rank, if you're gonna complain about some stuff, try and ask more about advice or quote other people who actually have played at higher ranks. Like, if you're gonna make a forum post about something to do with Miracle or Druid or any class balancing, don't complain about the deck being overpowered because of your experience at a lower rank. And don't respond to people who do think something's broken. Don't respond with some logical, stupid, like, paragraph about how your experience at rank 8 is better than their experience at legend, because ultimately no one is going to take you seriously, and most people just look at it like a troll post. So that's just a random suggestion. But anyway, that's sort of my entire rant, which I don't normally do, to be honest. I normally talk positively about stuff. I don't do rants. But yeah, that's my entire rant about the whole Miracle Druid problem, and also just, I guess, the problems with forum posters in general. Because I don't normally go in forums for this reason. But I thought I'd probably put my 2 cents on this for one reason, especially with the new season coming out, and with Nax coming up. Random thing though, with Nax coming out, what I would like to see to try and fix combo decks in general, because if you nerf this, then another one's going to come up, another one. It's an infinite cycle. So what I would do to try and fix combo decks in general is just add disruption cards for the faster tempo decks. Just add disruption cards. Like, combo decks have, if you look at Miracle Rogue, this is how much disruption they have for aggro and mid-range decks. Sap, SI7, Earthen Ring Farseer, Conceal, like, yeah, they have Conceal, then they have, on top of that, they have a lot of removal for this stuff. Blade Flurry is technically a disruption, it's more a board wipe, but anyway, they have a lot of disruption cards. The answer that mid-range and aggro decks have for Miracle is race them. They don't have any disruption. They may have Fairy Dragon. That's the only disruption card. And I guess the mill decks can run disruption, you know, the King Mokla and Cold Light Oracle. That's the only disruption you really have access to. And to be honest, that's pretty horrible design if you're trying to, because that's just assuming that no one has combo decks. You know, this is going to happen. So what I would like to see out of future sets is, I mean, the Nax set's already finished, so if the disruption cards are in there, then that's fine. But for future sets that haven't been made yet, what I would like to see is some lower cost disruption cards, like the equivalent of Hate Bears from Magic, although in Hearthstone it's usually 3 drops. If you look, Big Game Hunter, Earthen Ring Farseer, Blood Knight, they're all 3 drops. So Loatheb, for example, the battle cries cost 5 more, make that a 3 drop. 3 mana 2/2 or something. That's a disruption card. Disruption card goes in tempo decks, you're done and dusted. Disrupts the combo decks because they can't combo off with that thing on the board. They have to kill it. That's all I'm asking for. Things like that. And you could add something that you could add mana. You could add mana wraith for spells. That's another thing you could do. Just make it like a 2 mana 2/2, increases the cost of spells by 1 for both players. That's all you need to do. Just add disruption cards. If you give these early decks the tools to cause disruption, and you don't want to make them super aggressive cards. You want, like, if they're aggressive, you want their stats to be toned down. Like Mana Wraith, for example, is a 2/2. You can make the spell one like a 1/3. Actually, you'd want to do that. No, 2/2 is easier to kill. Like, you can make a 2/2 easy to kill, not that aggressive. And in the case of Loatheb, make it like a 3 mana 2/3 or 3 mana 2/2. Again, not not a large amount of damage being added to the board. It's just designed to disrupt your opponent with combo decks and control decks, because that is the one thing we do not have right now, and it is changed Hearthstone into burst decks and combo decks and control decks. That's all we have. We have aggro, rush, we just have aggro, mid-range, combo, control, and all of them play burst. All of them. That's how you win the game right now. Every single deck plays burst, because there's no way of stopping burst. There's no way of stopping charge either. That is another suggestion I would add. add like a, I don't know, like a 4 mana 4/4 that just stops things with charge, like you can't charge. I think that'd be amazing personally, because that stops a lot of random shenanigans, and it's good against aggro decks, it's good against mid-range decks, it's good against a lot of things, and it could be like a balancer while still not being that hard to kill if it's like a 4 mana 3/3 then. I'm just throwing ideas around now, like right now. I'm not balancing them. Like if I actually want to sit down and like figure this stuff out, I just go on cockatrice and with my teammates and just test this stuff out. But I'm not really doing that. I'm just throwing out suggestions because I do like to think that some of my stuff reaches Blizzard, because I know at least the weekly shows do, because they get featured. So I'm sort of just throwing out suggestions right now, where if you want to fix combo decks, you don't want to have to infinitely nerf them, which is what the cycle you're currently in. Add disruption tools for the fairer decks like Tempo, because Tempo Rogue, Tempo Warrior, all the Tempo decks, most Tempo decks just turn into the unfair decks like mid-range Druid with the burst, or aggro mage with all the burst. Like most Tempo decks just get beaten out by that stuff in their own class. So if you want Tempo decks to be around, and I would suggest you do, because they are very, very fun to play against, because they're playing fairly. They're actually very, very fair decks. Like they win by outvaluing you, basically. They just have the same amount of card draw, same amount of everything, and they just get 2-for-1s. Not even 2-for-1s, like 1.5-for-1s until they win. That's how Tempo decks work. And to be honest, Tempo decks, like, they're the most fun to play against. A Tempo versus Tempo, like a Tempo deck versus another Tempo deck is one of the most fun games of Hearthstone you'll ever play. It involves removal spells, minions hitting each other, there's no burst, it's like a 13-turn game where there's like back and forth all the time, and the game doesn't drag on for too long. So it's actually one of the most fun games you'll ever play. And it also, those kinds of decks reward skill as well. So I'm not saying like the entire game should become like that, I'm just saying that should be a viable option. There should be some sort of Tempo deck that is a viable option, because it is very, very healthy for the game. And generally, I mean, whenever I get the opportunity to play a Tempo deck, I will, because they're great fun to play, and it's it's a nice change of pace to play a fair deck over a deck that is literally designed to do unfair things, which is what most viable decks are right now. So, yeah. I don't know, like, that's what I would do, at least in future sets. Again, with Naxxramas, Naxxramas is already finished, they're just waiting to release it. So, as far as that stuff is concerned, I mean, that set's already finished, so none of the stuff will really go into that, but the next set would be very, very interesting to see disruption cards in the earlier decks, and it will definitely help a lot with that. Although the metagame may be completely different at that time, it's still something you want to be adding, so combo decks don't just come back and wreck everything. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or just want to ask any questions or anything, put it in the comment section below. And also, if anyone can answer the question of where the Zoo deck countering Rogue thing came from, because I'm still really curious about that. Now, I do stream now. I'm trying to stream a bit more often, and I do stream tournaments, definitely. So I'll put the Twitch in the description, and whenever I do stream, I also put it up on Twitter, so you can follow me on Twitter as well if you would like. But as for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.